Taxation is a very important thing if you would like to be competitive. Because of a special taxation that we have in Belarus, software engineers have cash the same amount as they would have in, let's say, in Paris.
This is the Person of Interest podcast, where we meet extraordinary people with a story to tell.
My name is Agnes Salatse, and I am very honored to be hosting the Person of Interest podcast for the first time. I have been a devoted listener, and I feel like I have big shoes to fill today, as Mike is not here. I am myself a political scientist, and I work just next door to Stockholm School of Economics in Riga. And I usually work with migration and integration issues, but today our topic is more about the mobility that one can have in one's career, how many changes and turns of events affect how we see the perspectives of the future in a region and in the world altogether. And I have the honor today to be talking to a former diplomat, a Belarusian politician, entrepreneur, and the founder of Belarusian Hi-Tech Park, Valery Tsepkalo. Welcome and hi.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Would you use these same words to describe yourself? Would you call yourself a politician, an entrepreneur?
Yeah, very good question. I never considered myself as a politician, because we got used to the notion of politician as somebody who devotes his life completely to policy, to politics. I was more like a diplomat and then on the entrepreneurial side. But I was just a citizen of my country who decided one day to run for the president because I thought that I knew how to change the country. I had enough experience in doing that in economic life. And also I learned the most successful examples of economic development in the countries that used to be in the third world, but then were able to move to the first world. It's like the very well-known stories of Singapore, Malaysia, Korea, and South Korea definitely, and other countries of the world that were able to reach and to achieve the level of development of the industrialized nations. So that was very interesting topic for me. And as a scholar also, I learned the experience and tried to implement it in my own country. However, I was able to do it only in a high-tech park, in a small cluster. But this small cluster demonstrated that it is possible to extrapolate this experience to the whole Belarus economy.
Right, and you talk about countries that have changed very much in the eyes of the world. And you started your career as a diplomat and in the 90s. And if there's a place that knows what turbulent times 90s were, it's also Latvia. How would you say the image of Belarus has changed since the 90s to today, and what are some of the main factors that have influenced that?
I was a diplomat. I was a Soviet diplomat in Finland for some time, and I saw the huge crisis also that came to Finland because of the coming collapse of the Soviet Union. And Finland had the clearing system of payment with the Soviet Union, which allowed this country to export practically everything to the big market of the Soviet Union. So they were in a very comfortable position during the times of the Soviet Union because they were market economy and they could get money in the West. And however, they could produce anything practically and export it to the Soviet Union. Not even to export it, but to change it for oil and gas. And that was the system that they had. But then when the Soviet Union collapsed, Finland was also in a huge, huge crisis. And they were able, within a very short period of time, 5 years, to change completely the economic structure of the country, to focus on education. And they started to focus on education on the very basic level, from secondary school then to universities. They changed the banking system. So they made a lot of steps which allowed the country that was not considered highly on the West. They were able to create the companies like Nokia, which appeared to be a huge success story. By the way, I was at that time in Finland when Gorbachev paid a visit. At that time, he was the president of the Soviet Union. And we came to Nokia company. I was among the members of the delegation, not the delegation coming from the Soviet Union, but the delegation that accepted him inside the embassy. And, I saw the shock that Gorbachev had when he tried to dial the mobile phone and reached his secretary in Kremlin. At that time, the guys from Nokia, they just made several photos of Gorbachev. And then when in 2005, I was again in Finland, and I met the first vice president of Nokia company. At that time, Nokia was on the top of the world, probably the most successful, or one of the most successful companies in the world. And they gave me a gift, a book, just about the story of Nokia company. And I saw this picture, just of Gorbachev. They put it in the book of their company, of the history of their company. But, the funny thing about the technology world that, you cannot run the company the same way as the companies run in traditional businesses, like in food processing industry, in the automobile industry. You have to be very, very different. And, Nokia one day, they relaxed a little bit and they lost everything. They lost their competitiveness. But the good news for the countries like Finland is that the working force, intellectual working force, is able to migrate from one sector into another, and this working force can be easily retrained. And they started the gaming industry, for computer gaming industry, and Angry Birds Finnish product appeared to be very, very successful. And a lot of success stories started to come around. And, and practically these intellectuals, they moved from Nokia and they were evenly distributed among the gaming studios of Finland. And when we started Hi-Tech Park, we definitely kept in mind the story of Finland also, and not only the story of Finland, definitely, because I visited Singapore, I visited Malaysia, I met the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Mahathir Mohamad. He created at that time the Cyber Jaya. The Cyber Jaya was a kind of a high-tech park and informational superhighway. So they had a lot of ambitious projects in their country, but you're right, they focused on that and they achieved quite good results also, especially Singapore. But Korea, appeared to be the pioneer of it. And, some time ago I was in correspondence with Michael Spence, who was the Nobel laureate in economics. And he gave me his books and his book. And he wrote that he was amazed by the success of Belarus Hi-Tech Park and so on and so forth. At that time, he was a consultant in the World Bank. And he told me the story that he was consulting the Korean government about how to make transformation from industrialized nation to post-industrial nation, to the nation in technology. And really funny that at that time Korean politicians, they wanted to stay with industries that brought them world success. And this was textile industry, the made running shoes and, just steel industry. So, just they appear, shipbuilding industry. So they were in these industries. These industries brought a success to Korean economy, and they wanted to stay the same way. And he told them, just because you have to move forward somehow and not to be attached to, let's say, textile industry, because you are losing competitiveness when the salaries are rising. It's more and more sophisticated or problematic to compete on the global market. And many manufacturers started to move to China. And, they relaxed a little bit. They started to focus on technology industry. And now they have Hyundai, LG, they have Samsung, just very famous. Hynix, as a matter of fact, very, very famous brands. Hynix, I think, is the third largest world company in producing microchips. And I know it very well because we make an R&D center of Hynix in our high-tech park. And is this R&D center is they design microchips. The manufacturing facilities are located in Korea and China, but R&D centers are in Korea, United States of America, and our high-tech park in the Republic of Belarus. The third largest chip manufacturing company, which they deliver their products to Apple, just to Samsung, to the world's leading brands. We started to develop the school of it. We used actually the existing school, but we started to adjust it to this sector of economy, and they're very happy that they have R&D center of Hynix in Belarus. I think now they're about 200, 250 people. Not big numbers, definitely. We cannot compare it with the numbers of high-tech park, but very, very specific sector, which helps us to develop this also segment of technology industry. So, as a matter of fact, summarizing everything, just we can see that how you can achieve success. Just you should be thinking first of all, and not to thinking how to achieve certain result. What first of all results you would like to achieve in the future? You should try to predict future a little bit, even a little bit, because definitely all our predictions, just in many cases are fertile. We cannot predict the future.
If we look at the numbers, almost 15% of job growth in Belarus is because of the development of the IT sector. It comprises about 6% of the nation's GDP. Obviously, this has been very closely linked to the development of the high technology park, and this was, as I understand, one of your aims and ideas behind developing this institutional framework, I guess. So, first of all, would you say that Belarus has seen and understood the move away from its more traditional industries? And what are some of the success stories that have come out of this high technology park? I know a few names like Viber or World of Tanks, but there are probably some more industry-specific names that you can tell us about.
Yeah, well, definitely we started to develop high-tech park as more based on the outsourcing industry, the so-called service industry. And in order to appear famous world products, it was necessary, first of all, to create the big class of software engineers. Not only software engineers, designers, quality assurance specialists, all these type of people that are attached to technology industry. And in order to create this big amount of the software engineers, to make the so-called critical mass of these people, we had to start from outsourcing industry, and we started from it. And in this industry, there are a couple of good companies that we have, like for instance, EPAM, which now has about 10,000 software engineers in Belarus. Then IBA, which has probably 3.5 thousand software engineers in Belarus. About 2,000 has the companies like Exadel, eTransition, then ScienceSoft. So just quite good companies that we have in this sector, quite strong companies, and just it's good that these service companies, they teach their employees how to work on the very, very sophisticated projects in the West. And if you take Forbes 100 companies, top companies of the world, you can see that half of them are the clients of our high-tech park. And these companies are really big names. They are General Electric, Bank of America, Google, Amazon, Oracle, you name it. Very, very many companies, just that use services by our companies of our high-tech park. Altogether now we have about 75,000 software engineers employed there. But what is really impressive is now we have like this exponential growth, because when I started Hi-Tech Park, we didn't have experts, and just one of the companies, telecommunication companies, wanted to make a billing system in Belarus. It was in 2003. The company name was Vilcom, and the owner of the company made a phone call asking me, if I know IT company in Belarus that could do a billing system for Belarus telecom company. And there were no experts, just nobody could do it. So they were ready to pay good money, but nobody could do it professionally. And funny enough, I think they bought it either from Israel, yes, or from Finland. And then, just the general manager of Belarus National Library made a phone call asking me if there is a company that can make software for library, and they were nobody. I mean, they bought the software from Israel. So, but now, the clients are Deutsche Telekom, Orange, and their top headquarters, and the biggest banks, UBS, Bank of America, Barclays Capital, all these famous brands are the clients of the companies inside our high-tech park. Well, normally you do not know the names of, the companies that provide services for other big brands. These companies are not well known because they are not on the consumer market. They're on the professional market. But consumer market, you are right. There are a couple of brands like Masquerade that was purchased later on by Facebook, and World of Tanks, a very famous game. And the company now, Wargaming, is among top world companies in the sphere of gaming industry. And also Viber, which was purchased later on by Hiroshi Mikitani, who is the owner of Rakuten, the third largest e-commerce companies. After Amazon and Alibaba, I think Rakuten is the third largest. So the Japanese company purchased it. But the R&D center, the development center, is still in Belarus. So.
The only app I've used on the list is Maps.me, which is the maps you can download whenever you travel, and you don't have to have internet connection to navigate in this new place. So whenever I was reading up, this was a familiar name to me. But then I also came across the involvement of the IT sector, the tech sector, in this resistance movement. So there were a couple of programs or apps that were developed to monitor the election process as well, such as Golos for checking the vote count, Bison to collect data on poll violations, and Honest People to gather eyewitness testimonies about the process of the election. And of course, in the Baltic states, probably the regular person first heard more about the Belarusian IT sector whenever we heard about companies wanting to relocate outside of Belarus to be able to continue their work, because they felt like the government crackdown after these illegitimate elections would hinder their work process. So have you been observing and following this process? Have you seen the effect of government programs in Latvia and Lithuania on attracting these companies? Do you think that this will be a process that will affect the majority of the sector, or will most people stay and work there and continue participating in the resistance?
That's a very good question, because it was not only the desire of some of Belarus software engineers to be relocated, and not only the desire of some business owners of Belarus companies to relocate their personnel, because it's really a big headache. But sometimes that's what a client wants, this or that client. And the reason, I was in Ukraine for some time, just after I had to flee the country. And to every hotel that I came, I saw a group of Belarus software engineers in practically all the hotels, working on certain projects for Western clients or American clients. Because when they saw all these happenings, they didn't want to jeopardize their business, especially when they invested a lot of money into the product that was not released yet. And, they wanted to keep the people safe, and they wanted to put them in another location. Again, this was the desire of the client. They are ready to pay some extra money for the relocation of these software engineers, but they didn't want to jeopardize the product. So I definitely follow this process, and I know that a lot of Belarus software engineers moved to Ukraine, to Poland, to Lithuania. There are several companies that also moved to Latvia with the people, with the software engineers also here. But in order to make the process sustainable, it's definitely necessary to make a special policy in connection to the development of this sector of economy. Definitely it can grow by itself also, but if you look at any success stories in any country of the world, just special efforts were made by the government in order to boost this sector of economy. I worked as a consultant for the government of Uzbekistan, for the government of Azerbaijan, and for the government of the Republic of Georgia. And I'm still a consultant of the government of the Republic of Georgia in IT sector. And I can see that when the government made some concrete steps in terms of taxation, in terms of the support, or even publicly announcing that this is our priority, and start to communicate with the industry, with the expert, we can see that there is a growth in this country. In Uzbekistan, they created 2 high-tech parks, and I was a consultant in the development of both of them. It was Mirzo-Ulugh Innovation Center and Uzbekistan IT Park. So 2 structures. One is focused on the service industry, and other is like to support startup companies. So they are developing very successfully. The government of the Republic of Georgia adopted a special law for IT specialists, and about 30 of our software engineers and organizers of this business, they went to Georgia. They started to train their people. They spent there like 3 months or something like that. So they started to put on track all the business processes there, create an educational initiative, some educational centers, send them Belarus people that are, able of teaching the skills that are necessary on the world market, and also teaching the local personnel that would later on continue this job to Georgian citizens. So we launched this project in Georgia, and I think that the perspectives are quite good for this country also. So more or less I'm following that, and but taxation is a very important thing if you would like to be competitive, because just on just because of a special taxation that we have in Belarus, software engineers have cash the same amount as they would have in, let's say, in Paris, as working as a software engineers. But the standard of living, just is in Paris is much higher than in Minsk, and for our guys it's more comfortable to be in Minsk and to have the same salary as in Paris. So just this the special taxation system creates the sustainability of this project. Now the regime decided to impose some extra taxes on IT companies and on individuals, on software engineers, because economically Belarus is definitely in a desperate situation now. Not any investor would trust in Belarus political, economic, or investment climate after 2020, after we all saw and still see what happens in the country. Just that the complete destruction of the legal system. The state doesn't work. I mean, the state is just a group of gangsters. Just now we can describe the current situation of the government of Belarus. Just they have nothing to do with law, and nobody would trust and nobody would invest. And just according to the forecast of the World Bank and IMF, Belarus would be the only country on the continent, on the Eurasian continent, that would experience negative growth this year, 2021, minus 2.5%. All other countries will be experiencing growth. And the government needs money, and because they need money, just they choose the most simplest approach is to raise taxes. Just this is the simplest solution, the simplest but not the most effective solution from my viewpoint. And they raise taxes to all the social groups of the people, and just they also put now higher taxes on even medicines. Just therefore they put some additional taxes even on elderly people, because just if you are talking about medicine, mostly elderly people, they use these medicines. So Belarus in a desperate situation. We don't know what would be, but Generally, the forecast is very pessimistic from my viewpoint, and a lot of people will flee the country. A lot of people would be looking for relocation, and whatever country would create more favorable how to say it, conditions for these people to come. Just the more they get highly educated and well-experienced people.
So welcoming the relocation of these companies is probably one element. What would you say if there is a role for other businesses, for clients, for customers of Belarusian companies in somehow supporting the strive for transition to democracy? Can business partners play a role in helping to diminish the current government, to undermine their role?
Well, definitely we do not want in Belarus that many people would flee the country, because somebody should stay on the ground and continue the fight for democracy. And IT people appear to be the most active players in this process. And the reason is very simple, because if you work for the state-run company, you are very dependent on the state, on the government. They can dismiss you any time, as they want, and they did it many, many times. But if you are software engineers and you possess some unique skills that are in a big need everywhere in the world, then you can feel yourself quite comfortable. Just you cannot be sent away from the company. They cannot do anything with you. They cannot make any economic push, economic pressure on the software engineers, because he can only take a notebook and just go anywhere in the world, and he will be welcome at any country in the world. So this is the reason these people were very active during this particular campaign, and we would like them to continue to stay in Belarus. But as I said, just in many cases, clients really want to relocate some core people, because in this business, if they would lose some key developer, and just it may mean for a client that just a huge investment that they previously did in their project or in their product, would be threatened, and probably never fulfilled. So this is like two streams that we have now. But returning back to Hi-Tech Park, and returning back to the experience of any country that would like to build the industry. Well, definitely, first of all, you have to bring economic stimuluses to technology industry. That is very important. Second is that you have to make a focus on the creation of the so-called service industry, because it brings you a lot of IT experts. A lot of IT experts is really necessary, because let's say you have an idea to make a product, and if you do not have a big pool of talents next door, then you have to find somebody in other countries. And in other countries, you have some cultural differences, cultural barriers, language barriers, and many problematic things. So let's say you are located in Latvia, and you do not have a pool of software engineers that would be able to fulfill your idea. What you have to do, you have to go to Germany, I don't know, to maybe China, or India, and you have cultural differences, you don't know how to approach, But if you have, if this is your neighbor, it's much more easier to create a new startup. That's also a very important thing. Second is that you have to create training centers. We were inspired by John Bryce Educational Center in Israel. This American Jew who created this educational center. And in the beginning of 90s, about 1 million Soviet Jews immigrated to Israel, and they couldn't find a job, because the construction industry, they need very limited number of these people, but the rest of them were, we call it intelligentsia, just that who could not work in kibbutzes, and kibbutzes probably also didn't need that big amount of the people. So John Bryce convinced, I think the first company was Motorola, to build R&D center, to open R&D center in Tel Aviv. And simultaneously, he started to retrain the Soviet Jews in order to be able to go to work to Motorola. Then HP opened, then Microsoft opened their offices, and so on and so forth. Thus, you can only imagine that 500,000 of these Soviet immigrants passed through the John Bryce Educational Center. They created a big mass of software engineers, and and these software engineers later on started to leave the companies, R&D centers of big American companies, and started their own business. But they learned how to work very efficiently. So we were inspired by these examples, and we created the educational center of Hi-Tech Park. And we took people from the street that are eager, that are passionate to become software engineers. And, later on, they became a part of our industry also. Also, you have to support startup companies, and not necessarily with money, but, with infrastructure. Infrastructure is very important because they can see guys, friends, just that are thinking in the same direction as they are. Just this ecosystem is really very important if you would like to see the success of startup companies. And what also I did, I also got together the leaders of the industry. We were sitting in the room like that, and we were discussing, just where the technology is going, what do we need to do, how we can combine our efforts. And we started from a small group of companies. In the beginning, they were like 5, maybe 6 companies in our Hi-Tech Park. Then, just this number started to grow. And by 50 people, we were still discussing. And then when the number of companies reached 200, just we built by that time very good business incubator for companies, and we started to get together these people, organize different events for them. It's really important for the industry to grow that somebody should unite all these people and create for them a platform for communication. Otherwise, they live in their own small environment. They do not know each other. Just they do not meet. And there, there are different people with the different backgrounds, doing different sectors of technology. But when they come together, they discuss. And then later on, when I went to any restaurants, I saw the people that are communicating with themselves. And they are simultaneously competitors, but they also find how to cooperate. And that, just these factors brought the success to Belarus IT industries.
So networking is your strong suite, and also probably something that is very valuable now in your current job. I don't know if you would call it your job to coordinate the efforts of the opposition. We have almost run out of time, so my last question to you is both with a look in the past but also with a look in the future. For a long time you worked for the government or with the government, and then you decided to run against the government in Belarus. Why such a decision, and do you still today, sitting here, believe in the change that is going to happen? And how do you see the outlook of the activities of the opposition, both within and outside of Belarus?
Well, just when you are talking about being working for the government or against the government, this is not the way how it works in Belarus. If you would like to do anything, even to build a very small factory that would start to manufacture this, gems, for fish, so you cannot do it. You cannot do it by yourself if you do not communicate with the government. The system doesn't work. So definitely, if you would like to do something, you have to communicate with the government. But what the government do you mean? During the Lukashenko time, there were 10 governments were changed, 10 prime ministers, 500 ministers, hundreds of governors, and this was the way he was running the country. He always found somebody who is guilty because of the mismanagement. And now we understand that the problem is Lukashenko himself, and his time has gone. Maybe he was good for, for the time when he came to power 26 years ago. He had his vision. His vision was probably not to the future but to the past, but it corresponded to the aspirations of many people. He was a good expert in agriculture, I would assume that. He knew how many piglets should be born from one pig, and how many hectares of corn you can get from, how many tons of corn you can get from 1 hectare of the land. All these type of things. And he was close. He was close, let's say, to my grandmother, who listened to him, and he said that, this cow can give 15 liters of milk, and why it's only given 10 liters of milk, and for my grandmother who had cows, he was close.
They spoke the same language.
Yeah, but politician is for his time, just for his century. If he would be for 10 years, maybe he would be mentioned in a good way, in Belarus books. But now it appeared to be that the whole society is far, far away, and he still keeps himself, just in some rural way of thinking, not. But even the rural way of thinking has changed, comparing with the time of 26 or 27 years ago. It's just the whole epoch, And this is only the problem, when I moved to this campaign, I didn't think that it would go smoothly, and I understood that, that dictators normally do not deliver the power. And frankly speaking, I didn't even believe that, it was able to experience any changes in Belarus. But what I really wanted is to show Belarus people that it could be another life, to show them different perspectives, to show how good they are having an experience of Hi-Tech Park, trying to extrapolate the experience that I had with Hi-Tech Park to the whole Belarus economy. Just how to reform, just everything, starting from education to healthcare system, even to agriculture. Just creating mechanisms of interest for the people that work on the land. And, and I think that, I started to do it, but I was not able to come to the final focal point because Lukashenko understood that we were a real threat to him, and he decided not to allow us to run further Viktor Babaryka, Sergei Tikhanovsky were imprisoned, and I had to flee the country since I got the information that they were planning to arrest me too, and they issued 2 arrests, just 2 criminal cases. I had 2 criminal cases against me opened in Belarus. So he decided, to just this is the end of the story. He decided to register Svetlana because he really didn't believe that a woman can make changes, and and I decided to support Svetlana as the only genuine alternative candidate left in the list. He made this mistake underestimating the abilities of Belarus women, I spoke with Maria Kolesnikova, the only person whom I know from Viktor Babaryka team, asking her also to support Svetlana, since Viktor was also not registered. And, just then probably the rest of the story.
Yeah, we've read that. Thank you very much again for taking the time for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was produced by SSC Riga. If you'd like to learn more about the topic, visit the open course schedule at SSC Riga Executive Education. For more podcasts, find us on Spotify, iTunes, or the platform of your choice. Remember, share this episode with your friends and colleagues.